Hello, I'm Pete Martin. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in other videos of mandolin, fiddle, improvisation, and many other musical subjects, click the subscribe banner below. And if you want to be notified when I post new videos, click the bell icon right next to it. This video series is to help people who've either never improvised before or who are kind of afraid of improvising much and haven't done it much, to get them to where they're comfortable improvising. We're going to use just kind of a generic non-jazz style, so this is not going to teach any particular music style of improvising, but it should give each individual enough basics that then if they want to go in and learn an individual improvising language, they should be able to do that just fine. More experienced improvisers, you can skip around in this video series, but I really suggest people that are either starting from the beginning or who are not comfortable improvising go through the videos in order. For people who skip around in the videos do tend to build on concepts introduced in previous videos, so you may have to go back at times and look up some things that you might have missed. There's a PDF file that goes along with each of these videos, so for this particular video, email me and request Improv from Scratch number 2 major scale outlines. In this video, I'm going to teach things in the key of G. It's up to you as an individual to learn these same concepts in other keys. In video number 1, we got comfortable with just making up something. In video number 1, you didn't have any other sound to synchronize to, so we didn't have to worry about that. But in reality, when you play with other people, an improviser needs to synchronize their sound to the sound of everybody they're playing with. You need to play your notes in such a way that they sound like they fit with who is accompanying you at that point if you're the improviser. And we start to take a look at that in this video. In video 1, we got used to improvising and just making something up off the cuff. It's extremely important to do that fairly regularly, so I would say keep doing that. Although at this point you may want to add other keys besides just the key of G that we did in that video. So try that on some other keys as well. One thing we weren't playing along with any other sound when we did that free improvising in the previous video. Starting here, though, we need to kind of learn how to synchronize our sound to the rhythm section that is accompanying us when we play a solo. So we'll start to do that in this video. So let's take a look at example 1 in the PDF file now. So in example 1, notice that we're leaving out one note of the G major scale. But when we play this partial scale with the one note left out, and that note is E, and then play the G chord, play the scale again and play the G chord, it sounds like they fit with each other. So what you could easily do to kind of prove that these fit with each other is put on a play-along file, something like Band in a Box or iReal Pro, and then play example 1 as eighth notes against that, and you'll hear how it fits. The reason it fits is because you are putting the notes of the G major chord, G, B, and D, at the same time the rhythm section is playing. So it sounds like you fit with each other. I call this concept syncing with the rhythm section. So in example 1, the scale lasts for a measure, and it synchronizes us to a G chord in that one measure. In example 2, we look at how to synchronize to this G chord for 2 measures. We see this same idea for a C chord in example 3. Now let's say we have a song that we want to play an improvised solo against, and that song has 4 measures of a G chord, 2 measures of a C chord, and 2 measures of a G chord. We see that here. Example 2 had the outline of the G chord in it, and example 3 had the outline of the C chord. So we can simply play those where these chords are in this new chord progression we just saw. This is example 4, and I do it here. One, two, three, four. Now let's use a third chord in this key of G chord progression. We're going to use a D7. A D7, or what music theory people call dominant 7, a D dominant 7, is a chord. The dominant chord's function is to resolve eventually back to what is called the tonic major. The tonic is simply the name of the key you're in, so the tonic major would be a G major chord. So in this case, the D7 chord resolves to G. So take your mandolin and play a D7 chord, and then play G, and hear how that D7 really does want to resolve back to G. Because the chord, the dominant chord, has a different function, we need to use a slightly different scale with it. And example 5 introduces that scale. So take a look at that now. Example 5 is an ascending scale that covers 1 measure. If we want to cover 2 measures, we need to ascend and descend. We see that in example 6. Now let's say that we have a chord progression that is 4 measures of G, 2 measures of D7, and 2 measures of G. We see that here. Example 7 has the chord outlines for this progression. One, two, three, four. these two chord progressions we've been working on together, we could easily have what is the chord progression of the verse of a common folk song. So we see that here. The outlines for this chord progression are example 8. One, two, three, four. We can also play a G7 chord whenever C follows. So here is a slightly modified version of the previous chord progression, but with the G7 leading to the C. Chord outlines for this new progression are in example 9. One, two, three, four. Anytime the chord progression moves by a fifth, we can use a dominant 7 chord to indicate that movement. So, in our case, D to G is a fifth. We can use a dominant 7, D7, to move to G. G to C is a fifth, so we can use a G7 to move to C. If you play a G7 chord and then play a C after it, you'll hear how this movement works. Okay? So we can use these in the scale outlines. Now, it doesn't matter if the rhythm section is playing a dominant 7 chord or not, we can still use that in our scale outlines. So even if the rhythm section is just playing a G chord to a C chord, we can use the G7 outline to move to C, and it sounds actually really good when we do that. One thing I want you to do is take these and move them through several keys. Take this progression in this video and move it through several keys and learn how to play these chord outlines in those keys. When you're comfortable doing this, then move on to the next video. I'm Pete Martin. Thanks for watching.